Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge. In today's episode, how to get your beer guy to hate you. He told me to just fix it, so I did. Case of the missing floor buffer. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. How to get your beer guy to hate you. This MC actually just happened several hours ago. I will give you a fair warning that this was more of a mild and crude bit of malicious compliance than some of the other stories on this subreddit, but I felt I should share it anyway. I work for a beverage distributor on delivery routes. As you might imagine, the summer is the busiest time of the year for sales. Some owners take advantage of full pallet discounts and stock up as much as possible when certain items go on sale. It's usually not much of a problem for larger stores, but it can be a crazy mess for convenience stores, ma and pa shops, etc. This is where nitpicky bitch comes into play. Picture a short woman in her mid-50s with a permanent scowl on her face with 1980s Michael Keaton hair as gray and drab as her personality. She is known throughout our drivers to be an overbearing tyrant of the liquor store, attached to a shabby and slightly neglected economy grocery store, though not in any real position of official power. Since she is literally the only clerk in the store when we show up, she has taken it upon herself to make our lives as miserable as possible to make up for her wretched and pathetic existence. Now let's get back to the story. I was paired up with a veteran driver since the load was pretty solid, and I'm in the training process of getting my own route. We get to the store in the early afternoon rather than in the morning because the actual manager refuses to come in early to let us in. The heat index was now in the triple digits for temperature, and we were sweating like a gypsy with a mortgage before even parking the rig. The store took advantage of a special sale and ordered several hundred cases of beer. To our dismay, the store was still quite stocked from last week, not much of a shocker there. Both the cooler and the floor were full or nearly full. Rather than get angry or complain about it, I decided to start hauling in some beer. Seconds after entering, nitpicky bitch looked up from her roost and starts following me. I checked the dates on the floor cases and get lucky, no need to swap out older cases, and rolled my cart up to the stack. Oh no, don't bring in any more cases yet. You need to fix the shelves and the display. They look awful, she hissed. It was at that moment that I knew she was just trying to piss us off and make us waste time. The stacks were nearly perfectly straight, handles all the same way, and logos all right side up. Even on the slightly crooked cases, it was clear that this was not our doing from last week and really her problem as a clerk and not ours. I complied and straightened up a few things. My partner wheeled in a stack himself and began to drop it, when NB demanded that he stop. We are going to conserve floor space. Customers aren't going to get through here. Drop the stacks here and here, but no more than 2 deep, she gestured in a honeyed voice laced with contempt. My partner and I both cart in a few more trips worth of suds, and it became abundantly clear that we will need to be creative in order to get pallets and pallets of beer inside while still keeping the floor open for customers. Enter phase 1 of the malicious compliance. NB got tied up at the register with a few customers, so we got to work stacking cases. If we couldn't place any more than a few columns worth of beer widthwise, then we were going to stack them high. Soon, we were at least 8 feet high with beer with much more to go. My partner is 6 feet 2 inches, or 6 feet 3 inches, and was going until he couldn't reach, and I was doing a bit of a hop and toss to get the top ones on. After filling the floor spots as high as possible without a ladder or decent-sized step stool, we further complied by her nonsense by refilling the empty overstock shelves, as high as we could go with a step stool made of more cases of beer. NB finished up with the line of patrons, and came over just red in the face and silently furious. There was no way she could reach even halfway up the rear stacks without a ladder. She even attempted to help us by handing us some cases, making sure to complain about the weight, and how she's definitely going to feel this in the morning. As I went up the custom fabricated beer steps, I accidentally let a little gas slip out. It is after lunch, anyhow. NB was there in a flash, berating me for passing gas on the sales floor where all the customers would be disgusted and annoyed. It's vacant except for us now, and demanded that if I needed to further relieve myself, I'd have to do that outside. In all honesty, it really was some foul swamp gas that had been lurking in the dark recesses of my digestive system. I certainly didn't mean to let one out, but the rumbling in my stomach told me there was more to come. NB continued to micromanage my partner, so I left for more beer. I decided right then and there that I would passively get back at NB. It was hotter than blazes, we were covered in sweat, and it's our third to last stop on a Friday. Fuck it. I started wheeling in another cartful and let a real monster loose. It could be heard clearly over the racket of the truck idling. The door to the store was propped open, and I came striding right through. That gave me an idea. NB was pretending to ignore us at the register, derping around on her phone, conveniently located near the entrance. Every cartload I brought in was preceded by at least a few pops or a good brap. NB was now busy with another straggler at the register, and I made a point of strutting past each trip. By the time the stop was unloaded, there was definitely a real funk to the entryway. NB was fuming, okay, that was bad, and just signed off on the paperwork and stormed off. Sometimes, playing by the rules is the best revenge. He told me to just fix it, so I did. This might be a little tame, but even tame stories make for amusing stories at times. This happened several years ago, so I might not remember all the details, but I'm going to try to remember to the best of my ability. I work at a retail store that sells everything from groceries to home goods to clothing. No, it's not the big W word, and back before I was in my current position, I was the closing cashier in my department. Typically the manager would just let the cashier close the register and leave without doing additional work, but sometimes if you were scheduled a little later then they would have us do some closing cleanup. Putting away items from customer service, pulling stuff forward on the shelves, that sort of stuff. One night my manager came by as I was closing up the register and asked me to fix a shipper that was near the register before I left. I asked what he meant and he said just fix it and walked off. As I was walking past it to drop the money, I could see that it was a complete mess. This shipper was actually two shippers of Hot Wheels that were placed back to back with product inside the back parts as well as the front, and customers who collect Hot Wheels had pulled the two pieces apart and dug through the middle as well. I could see that on the middle there were cars that had fallen down, and to push it together I'd have to pull them apart and pick all of these up. So I pulled them apart. I knew that no matter how well I cleaned it up today, I was probably going to encounter it being pulled apart again the next night by customers and have to repeat this task. The outside and inside was pretty picked over, and I got an idea. I knew it wasn't what my manager had intended, but I had asked him to clarify, and he had simply said just fix it, so I decided to fix it. I proceeded to pull every single Hot Wheel from the inside of the shipper and put them on the floor around it. I made sure they were as close to the shipper to not create a hazard to my coworkers should they come by. Then I went to the register, and I got the thick clear packing tape we kept at the register, and I put the shippers together, and I ran tape around the place where the two met, adding a few cross strips to secure it better. Then I proceeded to straighten up the outside portions of the shipper, adding in cars from the floor as they fit. When my manager came back by to check in, he saw me kneeling on the floor surrounded by Hot Wheels and he said, "What the hell?" I replied, "You told me to fix it, so I'm fixing it." He said, "I meant just to straighten it up." I responded, "You didn't say straighten it up. You said fix it." We still work together although he's no longer a manager, stepped down of his own accord, and we still laugh about the story from time to time. Case of the missing floor buffer. About 20 years ago, I was enlisted in the Marines. One of the things Marines are famous for is janitorial service. We swept, we mopped, and we buffed the floor like nobody's business. It wasn't wartime, this is Garrison Marine Corps. Since the day I checked in, my platoon was assigned 2 floor buffers. My specific shop within the platoon was accountable for producing those floor buffers during inspection. Thing is, the shop had only ever had 1 floor buffer, and my shop took the hit for not being able to produce a piece of government property during an inspection. More specifically, I took the hit. A year or 2 went by, and perhaps 2 or 3 of these inspections had occurred, all resulting in our inability to produce the 2nd floor buffer, and all giving my shop a black mark on our inspection readiness record because, if you're gonna go to war, you're gonna need 2 floor buffers. By this time, I get wise to how DRMO works, Defense Reutilization and Marketing Office. Basically, it's where units like mine can dispose of government property and get it off of our books, like broken chairs, refrigerators, or even vehicles. Where applicable, each item that was turned in had its serial number recorded, and a receipt for said item and serial number was issued in return. Units could also pick through what was turned in, however, they would be required to add these things to their books, cost-free. civilians or individuals were allowed to buy items, but had to do so out of pocket. Another kick-you-in-the-nuts inspection was coming up, so the plan was hatched. A DRMO run was made, where a floor buffer handle was procured, as an individual. I believe $2 was handed over to pay for this item. The floor buffer handle, it should be noted, does not contain the serial number of the floor buffer, the big bottom round thing did. The handle was brought back to my shop, engraved with the missing floor buffer's serial number, and promptly returned to DRMO. A receipt containing the return of a floor buffer with a serial number that matched the missing floor buffer was issued, and that receipt was taken to our supply officer to remove the specific floor buffer from our inventory. Through malicious compliance, the case of the missing floor buffer was solved. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.